Pledge of Allegiance, which Jay will lead.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. I got Judy's little chair.
Are we having a bad one?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I feel on the same plane, Judy. It's great. Yeah, exactly. So welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Any modifications to the agenda? Anyone?
I don't think so.
Are we good?
This is the first.
Which is good. And I fixed mine. And first item on the agenda, as many of you may know, we did have an election last week, which was a good thing, and it was a good thing that our budget passed, and we appreciate the support from the community on that item. As a result of that election, there were 2 new folks in the community elected to the Board of Education, Chris Malcolm and Pat Wazalu are here tonight and will be joining us at most meetings when their heavy schedules permit, because they'll have to do the orientation to be on the school board, and there's multiple opportunity to do that through the Central New York School Boards Association and all the rules and regs that come with being on the board. And again, congratulations, Dr. Brown, on your first budget referendum passage, and so we congratulate you and your team for the budget that came forward that was supported. Approximately 1 year ago, after last year's election, Scott Perez resigned due to personal issues at home and the needs that he had. The way the rules work, that the board at that point has an opportunity to go ahead and have another election, which we chose not to do. We can appoint someone to serve on the board, or leave that seat empty. Regardless of whether we appointed someone to serve on the board or left it empty, the highest vote getter in last week's election is the person that steps in and serves out the last weeks of Scott Perez's election term. So that, by the vote of the community, is Pat Wazalu. And so, Pat, you will be taking the oath today to serve until really June 30th. And then, when we do our reorg, and you and Chris will be sworn in again for your regular term. So this is not that unusual, but it happens from time to time.
Happened to you?
Oh, that's right. It
Yeah,
did.
it did.
Yes, it's there's a, there is a history of this. So at this time, Pat, we need to swear you in, and therefore you will be a voting member. You will fill out this 8-man crew and back into a 9-person. We have always been a 9-person board. That's our voting rules are based on that, and so Pat will be able to vote legally through the rest of June, and then forever after.
For 2 years after.
Forever. Wow, term limits, there you go. So I would ask that our board clerk go ahead and swear Pat in.
Right, press scan. Yes, yes.
Patricia Wazalu, do solemnly affirm
I, Patricia Wazalu, do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Board of Education member
of the office of the Board of Education member
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
There you go, Pat. Now you have to attend meetings. So to the winner goes the spoils. Is there anyone signed up? Anyone signed up to speak? Now it's the time. Well,
I'm here as representing the BOCES board that I've had the honor of serving for the last 6 years. This will be my last meeting. I thought I'd come down and tell you how proud I've been to represent the Ithaca City School District, particularly that board of ed that's done such miraculous things as a $100 million capital program, every budget, found a magnificent new superintendent. I'm very proud of all of you. And I just want to thank you for the privilege of serving you, and I'll look forward to keeping in touch as time goes on. Anybody have any questions of what the Board of Ed and BOCES does?
Indeed, we do.
Thank you for your years of service, Ralph. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for the honor.
Yeah, Ralph, can I just add, in my interactions with you over the past few years while you've been on this board, I've been impressed with the level of service and how you continue to give back to the community and BOCES, something that's so important to our children and our students in the district, how many kids are served up there. And I've loved talking to you and interacting with you, and your energy, you know, gives me hope and inspiration of how, you know, we should all hope to continue to serve like you have, and you'll be missed, and I hope you don't stop visiting us.
I'll reveal a secret. You were a particular target. I've never felt that the Ithaca City School District took full advantage of their opportunities that are available at BOCES. That's a whole complex culture weaved together. But I tried to win you over and set you with a... I used to bring those brochures and put them where you sat. And I see you looking at them and nodding, and I think maybe you learned... BOCES is kind of an odd connection to the school district, so it's a learning curve to learn them all. But once you do, it's a wonderful institution of opportunity for the students.
We appreciate your persistence, Ralph. And Sue,
I would like to address Ralph. Years ago, when Ralph Jones was sitting on the Board of Education, he had an idea about raising funds from the public. And I sat with him as we discussed IPEI and grants. This absolutely outrageously wonderful dream that everybody thought was pie in the sky. And now it contributes hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every year to teachers to work on programs, to buy supplies, and to do things. He had the faith and confidence in those who were educators in this district. And we had our words and a lot of nightly meetings, but I have to say, he believed so strongly that he caused a lot of us to take a real good hard look, and for us to believe. And when we believed, others believed, and he made the dream come true. He was a staunch supporter of educators in the district, and the teachers of this district want to thank you for your time and your belief. Thank you. He also
Anyone
works
else,
on the
Ralph?
spelling bee, you know.
Yep.
anyone else? Ralph's a tough act to follow.
It is tough.
Any board comments at the moment?
Just update from the Human Resources Committee. We met this past week, and we reviewed the process and timeline for the hiring of the Bell Sherman and Enfield principals. We also discussed the retention of teachers of color, particularly in the coming year, and also recruitment of staff of color. So that's the great thing. I won't go into details, we've got a long agenda tonight, but that's that piece. And I'll also note that, switching committees here for a second, that the Budget Reform Committee will be meeting for the last time this year in June, and we'll be looking to see what makes sense going forward. How do we keep that work going, the reform effort? Should that perhaps become a standing committee of the board, whatever, but that group will bring its recommendations forward. And as you might remember, Dr. Brown is a staff person tasked to that committee, so that collaboration will continue.
Brad, Sean.
Audit committee will be meeting June 16th at 5. It's riveting stuff. I think we need to, I think the agenda for that one will be the task for, I love this, our internal auditor, who is actually an external firm, for the coming year. We need to give them the direction for the coming year. Then we've got a finance committee meeting on the 27th of June. My board colleagues will be getting a look at where we're ending 2011, the fiscal 2010-11, what funds might be available to put into reserve for future years, making some of those decisions for the year end on the 30th. So if you're interested, that one's at 5 o'clock on the 27th. I think that's all I have.
Two announcements. One, we're going to have to postpone the policy committee. I'm going to be talking to both Jay and Seth. It's scheduled for next Thursday, 5:30, but we have to reschedule the date, or the two of you can, by all means, have it without me.
No.
Wouldn't dream of it, I don't think.
Your enthusiasm for the committee just keeps me going. And then secondly, I had the privilege last night of attending the ICSD student survey results, the brief results from two of our phenomenal students, Cody and Phoebe, who did an amazing job of trying to disseminate some of the early returns. About 950 students participated in the survey and gathering various pieces of information and trying to figure out how best to gather the final proposal, the final research project, and to have it to sort of demonstrate it to not only the board but the larger community. And so hopefully we all look forward to seeing what those results look like from there. So good job, students. That was pretty phenomenal last night.
Anyone else? Be next. I guess we're not supposed to do announcements now, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. Really want to congratulate George Myers. Tremendous orchestra spring concert last Wednesday, Pat, correct?
Yes.
I mean, it was probably one of the best ones I've ever.
We have an orchestra member here.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Maybe more than one.
Yeah, and it was, if you really have an opportunity going forward to check out free concert series at the high school, it is beyond a doubt some excellent talent on display. Jamie Eaglesham, which we've known since he's been a little guy, but really tremendous solo and his performance. Very impressive. Ithaca High School baseball team won the Stack Metro title. They're going to be going to the playoffs. They did win the Western title a few years ago. The Ithaca Journal had a little iffy there. They have not won the Metro title since '94, but they did win in 2009 the Western title. So they've been in the playoffs. This group of kids, there's some very good baseball players there. Tomorrow night, I do believe there's a lacrosse playoff game at Ithaca High School against Corning. That is in the playoffs. That's gets them to go back into the playoffs, to sectional, and then they'll go to the states. Apparently, Jordan Freisinger from Corning is going to play. This is he was suspended and is coming back. So this is that D1 athlete that nobody could touch. But I would suggest it's going to be a nice night. Always nice to see the talent on display at Ithaca High School, whether it's at the Performing Arts Center or on the fields or in the classroom. So we'll move on. Dr. Brown took the consent agenda, enough advertisements for Ithaca High School, but that's okay. The kids aren't here to do it, so I'll fill in.
I'll move the consent is presented. Second. If I can speak to it.
Please do.
Just want to point out, and Susan's brought it up earlier, but point out that we have two items here that are contributions from PTAs and from IPEI, additions to the budget, in this case for enrichment activities and for a skate dance at Cass Park, but for enrichment activities, and that's from PTAs and IPEI, among all the other items on that consent.
Any other questions, comments regarding the consent? All in favor? That's everyone. And Pat voted. So first vote. And congratulations on that. I have to remember to look at Pat now to make sure whether she's raising or not. And you can always abstain, Pat, but it's not something I would probably always recommend to do that. But we could always call it a Pat, which we No, we don't want to have to do that.
Okay.
We don't want to have to do that, Sean, do we? No, we don't. Yeah, exactly. So Dr. Brown, after much ado, I think we're ready for you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony, and thank you for recognizing our lacrosse team. UVA has a good team also. But I wish tonight to highlight a couple
See, Dr. Brown, I didn't even hear that, but...
But you are turning Cornell red, which is interesting.
Food support services department, but then I will one thing in our food service department. I'm going to read some things because I want to make sure I get this correct. Cool School Food Program, which is a partnership between the New York Coalition for Healthy School Food, the Ithaca City School District, the Nutrition Program, the Moosewood Restaurant, Cayuga Pure Organics and Italian Carryhouse. They partnered to do some pretty cool stuff for school lunches. I'm eating school lunches for the first time since I was a 5th grader. And because of the stuff like the Tuscan tomato pie in all of our elementary schools, Fiesta Mexican lasagna, some of the innovations that our school food program is implementing right now are garnering national attention. I'm looking at an email that was sent out as part of an email blast to folks all over the country. And again, our program is doing some pretty cool things that's being recognized across the country now. And at our next Board of Education meeting, we're going to bring our school program director in. We're going to have her share some highlights of some of the things that they're doing. But I just wanted to let you know that there's some things floating in. I may send those out to you electronically, but again, look for an agenda item at an upcoming meeting to share with you some of the things that...
We just
tomato pie. Yeah.
Well, Denise promised us some award-winning chili at some point.
Accommodation.
Okay.
Plan in place.
So it's pretty great. And secondly, we have Mr. Jim Ellis here tonight, who is our new Director of Transportation. And I want, can you stand? Mr. Ellis? He's an outstanding transition into the program. He's already found some efficiencies. He has he's doing some great work. And I just wanted you to put a face with the name. I know you've heard about him being here, but he's been here a few months and he's done some things about code of conduct. He's infused his talents into all parts of our organization in just a few months.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that's all I have tonight since you're looking at me so mean right now. Probably was a little too deep.
I try not to think about Saturday, but Dr. Brown, I trust on Wednesday night that you can root for the guys who are wearing red with no problem.
I would do it on Friday.
All right. Are you ready, Judy?
No, we're talking about it, the recording session.
You have an issue?
The recorders did.
Technical difficulties.
So I've captured it on. Yeah.
And we are being recorded as well. And school district business, Sean, I'm looking at policies again.
This is not actually two policies, it's the same policy. It's 4316, the alternative physical education program for students in grades 10 through 12, and then the procedure for that policy, 4316P. This is a second reading. We had some discussion. Remember, Bill Bryant came and met with the board, the full board, along with Ms. Evelyn, last board meeting, and so it's on. It has made its way to the policy committee. It was approved to come to the board. It is on. We did table for a second reading with a little bit of discussion, and here we are for a second reading.
So it has been moved and tabled, and so it's really, are there any changes or any material
This is a policy deletion.
So we're looking at deletions again, so there's really no issues.
Taking it off the books.
I'm not sure we haven't done a lot of deletions over the years.
We have some great years on our policy book. 79, 82, you name it, it's critical.
So it is interesting to see some deletions so we can have some new policies in place, correct? So one vote for each, correct? So we'll have to do A then B.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. This has been moved before, so all in favor of deletion and of the motion on the table. That's everyone, even Eldred with his hand up. There we go. On to B. Been spoken to. Go ahead.
A quick word. I should say that before being elected to the school board, Pat was also fairly active when it come regularly to our policy committee meetings. So not voting without being informed on this one has participated in a good number of our conversations and how we even got here. I thought that'd be important for folks to know that you've been keeping tracking us in the policy committee for quite some time.
I enjoyed those policy committee meetings.
Isn't that nice?
Well,
There might be an opening.
okay.
Because me and Jay got it.
My daughter went to one,
Yep.
and she really enjoyed it, and we talked about it afterwards.
You don't even know what you're missing.
Yeah, we do know.
We had a lot of fun with finance, so I mean, there's a lot of fun going on.
Hey, we
So
have-
Pat, we know where to pencil
we have
you in
guests
to
there,
start.
sure.
Policy B, are we okay? So all in favor? Thank you, and that's everyone, including Pat. And Dr. Brown, again, we're through our business and on to a work session on technology, which has, apparently that's something beyond a book.
Yes, it is. And if we could allow some time to transition, we have some folks we've invited to come to the table.
Yeah,
Do you need,
we know Mike.
you need tape?
No, we'll just pull some chairs, if that's okay, Mike. We'll just remove those.
Sure. So.
All the guests are coming up front. I'm just going to, hi, thank you. My name is Mike Curtis. I'm the Director of Technology for the City School District, and I'm pleased to be in front of you with my colleagues. Well, I'll ask to introduce themselves if you don't mind in a minute. But we're really pleased that you are found at the time to listen to this corner of the Ithaca City District world. I think it's a very important growing area of concern. And thank you for this time together. Tim Boone, Director of Data Management and Assessment.
Michael Simons, Principal.
Todd Noyes, leader of the math department at Ithaca High School.
Shirley Kennedy, English Department Chair.
Susan Mittler, Elementary Ed, President, Ithaca Teachers Association.
Susan Danskin, Math Department Chair at DeWitt Middle School, ITA Treasurer.
We have some other folks back there who were shy, but they're going to be participating in the conversation.
We invited some other people back here, but they're just going to be witness, or would you like to introduce yourselves as well?
Sure, I'm Tracy Matrano. I am the IT Policy Director up at Cornell, and also I'm on the Tompkins County Broadband Committee. And Paula Younger is here as well.
I was going to point to Paula in a minute. I wasn't going to let her escape. I wanted to leave Sheridan.
Sure, I'm Ruchira Modi. I'm a Cornell MBA student, and I'm interested in education technology and have background in working in technology field.
And Paula, if you wouldn't mind standing up for a minute and introducing yourself.
Sure, I don't think I'm a stranger to this group, and they were probably thinking I was here representing the EILC tonight, but actually I'm here as the Deputy County Administrator that supports the Tompkins County Broadband Committee. And when I saw that you were having a discussion around infrastructure, I thought I just might listen in for a while. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Again, we're bringing the folks to the table tonight, and we have about an hour slated for this conversation because it's something that has risen to the top when I'm having conversations with folks as part of the transition plan. What's happening with technology in our district is on the minds of a lot of folks right now. When I'm in the building, people are pulling me into a place to look at the computers, how old they are, or they're talking about a lack of wireless infrastructure, or they're saying they can't get access at home. So these things are on the minds of all of our stakeholders. So tonight we won't have answers tonight. We have some recommendations, but much of tonight is about a discussion. And so for you to hear what's happening in our buildings and to hear what's possible, because we have some experts at the table who forgot more about technology than I've ever known. So we have some people at the table today to talk about the issues. We have some questions that we'll go through and to engage in some conversations. But again, we're not here to show you fancy toys. We'll save that for another night. To show you how we're using some things in the classrooms like an iPad or an iPod or smart boards. Tonight is about the deep conversation around teaching and learning and how we position ourselves, how we're currently positioned, and how we're going to position ourselves to move the teaching and learning forward. And I think you'll hear from the folks here tonight, we have much work to do. So you've received the background information. We gave you some things in your package just to give you some understanding of a baseline of understanding. Because you mentioned I needed to catch some folks up. So I hope that was good information and it was able to catch you up. We could find things such as the cloud, which I'm seeing a lot of here. But we find the cloud. And we also, and you'll see some things when we talk about a 3-to-1 student to computer ratio, why that's important and what that will cost us going forward. So some things that will back we may refer to as we go through tonight's conversation. But another key part of that packet was the SWOT analysis. Mr. Cliss and I, we've met with several stakeholder groups over the past few weeks. We've had conversations, we've had one-on-one conversations with a bunch of folks, but we put together that SWOT analysis just to give you some sense of what we see as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when it comes to technology integration and implementation in the school district. So I want to spend some time just going through some of the highlights, and I have a couple of slides that the guys
Well, you know, technology has always been a strength of this district, and the district has always made considerable investment in technology. And I think the community has always stood together in recognizing that it was an important enrichment to the education we offered here. I think that what's changed in the last 18 to 24 months is a tsunami of awareness has arisen that technology has become much more important to what we're up to here. When we look at some of the changes that we're struggling to meet with aligning with the new Common Core state standards, when we look at some of the mandates we're struggling to meet with automating summative secondary assessments for the state, we realize that technology is becoming more and more essential, not just to operations, but to every course we deliver. Not just to sciences and math, but right across the curriculum. And we're seeing that particularly now in English language arts, and we have some talented colleagues here who can address that more specifically in a minute. But we'll see it soon coming up next year with having to redo math, and other curriculums will follow. And we're seeing this increase in rigor and relevance and relationship integrating into the curriculum and in the way we're making curriculum more global. And the 3 R's are being augmented by the 2 C's, cloud computing. And so we'll be on the operational side, we're looking at how we can eliminate capital expenditures and control operational costs by moving things to the cloud. On the instructional side of the house, we're seeing how the cloud serves us in our anywhere, anytime, any device model of education, where we're trying to increase the multiple points of student contact and engagement with material. And we're seeing the impact now for the first time that wasn't available in years past on the data. What happens in environments that have 3-to-1 computing? What happens in environments that have 1-to-1 computing? And we're seeing the benefits that we get to graduation rates in 1-to-1 computing environments in secondary schools. And we're seeing the benefits you get from smart boards in classes where teachers are highly trained, and the dozen or dozen and a half percentile points that the average student benefits from in that environment. So whereas before we had a lot of faith in technology, now we have a lot of data, and it's pretty exciting. And it means we can move forward on much more solid ground, I think, on much more assured changes in our pedagogy going forward. There's still a great deal of work to be done, and I'm afraid the people in the hotspot are really our curricular developers. Bringing them the technology that they need will certainly be challenging enough. But the real challenge is connecting the dots between our learning objects and the technology we want to use to achieve those objects. We know that technology engages this generation of kids. We know that technology extends the school beyond the walls. We know that technology actually could go into the homes to build capacity in our families to educate themselves. And in fact, the business of education is shifting someone from just educating the students to educating the whole family. So it's a very exciting time. And at the same time, when we assess ourselves, we see that we have some deficits. When we look at some of the national standard bodies that tell us what's essential for success, and we measure ourselves against those standards, we see that we have places where we have to attend to. And so this conversation is really about looking in the mirror, being frank and honest about where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are, but not getting obsessed with analysis, moving forward to where we want to go next. And we have some exciting ideas to propose about where we want to go next.
You want to talk about some of our strengths
most of the people around this table know, but people in the great audience may not know, that the district has invested considerable amounts of funding in reinventing the inside of the technology of the district. And by the inside, I mean how devices connect to each other, the network in the walls and the network in the air. So we have what we call virtualized server infrastructure, which means we've modernized it and we've applied new softwares and tools for running the way we deliver server services in a way to dramatically reduce our expenses, our capital expenses, dramatically reduce our energy consumption, and control operational costs. That virtualization of the server infrastructure took about 2 years to do and is now complete. The data closet infrastructure, which was just completed last summer, went through and updated the environments of all the places in our school buildings where we have equipment that connects our network together. Equipment is very sensitive to environmental conditions, dust, heat fluctuations, water. And most of our closets, frankly, were just converted storage closets or converted janitor closets that we happened to stick some equipment in. When we finally went back with architects and changed those rooms into real controlled environments with real temperature and humidity control, which means we could afford to make investments in that equipment and know that that equipment was going to last. Because when you put equipment in other kinds of environments, what you get are surprises. And surprises keep us busy. So that helped a lot. I think we may have gone in that. So, not all is well, but we have some work to do. We know that we have underinvested in our computer fleet. We know that the consequence of underinvesting in our computer fleet is that the average age has increased. We know that at this point, 1,000 of our 2,400 computers are over 5 years old. We know that this is an obstacle to adoption, not only for teachers and instructions, but also for students who grapple with going from one system to another and dealing with different versions of software and having to translate documents and emailing things from home, and they're not working because the software at home is more modern than the software we have here. So modernizing the fleet is really critical and a recommended, one of the essential conditions really for success of a 21st century school. Well, having nice things around is certainly a good start, but having the knowledge of how to use them, having the tools is really important, but having the skill set and the knowledge set of how to apply them is really what makes the payback happen. You really only get incremental return on the investment if you don't have the professional development that accompanies the implementation of these tools. And likewise, we are recognizing that the standard for professional development is shifting under our feet. In fact, that even the model of professional development is shifting under our feet. We're even challenging the old thought of, the old pull-out model of professional development and looking at how our digitally native newer employees are autonomous and self-directed learners, and questioning whether or not that really isn't a more appropriate way to administer and distribute professional development. And maybe the classroom model, which is very expensive and maybe has marginal returns, it needs to be questioned a little bit, maybe isn't appropriate everywhere. So we're looking at new ideas about professional development, and we're questioning our old methods, and looking at best practices of other exemplar institutions. Inconsistent curriculum. Well, we don't really have curriculum that integrates technology the way it's being recommended. We really want to be in a position down the road where we look at our elementary curriculum and we say, that elementary curriculum gives every kid who comes through it the complete toolkit that they need for future success. And when we look at our middle school curriculum, we want to say that middle school curriculum gives every kid the skill sets they need to use those tools appropriately to be autonomous, self-directed learners. And we want to know that the secondary curriculum unleashes every one of those self-directed learners and allows them to develop advanced sets of knowledge or mindsets. So we want to integrate this model that is becoming very well known, and is Alan November, a very famous educator, created, where we institute tool set, skill set, mindset as a spiraled approach to developing curriculum to build upon the skills so that every child has exposure to these tools, whether they have them in the home or not, so that every child has the skills, every child can enter the workforce or go on to higher education confident that they have 21st century skills, they know what the tools are, and they know how to use them. We're not there yet. That's a lot of work to do. So that's part of what we'll get when we align with the Common Core standards, because one of the mandates of the Common Core standards is to embed 21st century skills and to embed tech integration into what we do. Opportunities, you bet, there are a lot of opportunities. And we're actually right to take advantage of many of them because of the work we've already done. The anywhere, anytime access, the data has shown, increases the points of contact or the time on task that students have by giving them the opportunity to engage the work anywhere they choose, through any device they choose. We think we're going in that direction. We certainly are trying to expand beyond the walls so that students and parents have access to our educational material inside or outside the school. Go on?
Yeah.
All right.
That wasn't Landon. I think right. I think that was what's going on over here. That wasn't Landon.
All right, threats. Storage continues to grow as our kids get literate in how to create and resplice and create multimedia content. Their need to store it and produce it and distribute it goes up. It's really important that we be able to scale our facility, whether it's local or in the cloud, to meet and stay ahead of that demand. We want to make sure in the same way that our network stays robust enough. For example, we know that we're going to more and more model of being a mobile community. And for the first time, that makes the district say, hey, we have to build a wireless network. The wireless network we have has been built in little pieces. It's never been a capital project. We've never tried to build a complete end-to-end wireless network. We're finally recognizing now that it is essential because more and more access has to be mobile. The state is demanding that we do summative assessments on computers. As you know, that's coming. So we have to ramp up to that capacity, and that's something we lack still.
And I have this slide here because two of the most commonly asked questions of me are, what's our distribution model for tools, and what's our replacement cycle? And I haven't had an answer for folks. I think, and I'll show you a slide here that's telling. Because what we do now is so site-based, we have no centralized distribution model. So what we have are schools that have more computers than others. I don't think we're at a place where any of our schools have enough, but right now we have some schools, as you'll see, who are at a 10-to-1 ratio and some that are at a 2-to-1 ratio. Some vast replacement cycles. When I walked into classrooms and I saw Emacs, so anyone who knows Apple computers, and you probably have forgotten about Emacs. We're trying to do some high-powered. We're trying to do some high-powered work in computer labs with Emacs.
6 of them.
And
so I just got rid of Apple IIe's.
Apple IIe's.
Yep.
And we have Apple IIe's in teachers' hands.
That's right.
So we're talking about a distribution model that, well, we really don't have one to speak of because we have significant inconsistencies among schools. And when thinking about not having a computer 5 years or older in our schools, we have 1,000 or more that are close to 8 or 9 years old. And it's taxing. And if we look at the work orders that our support staff are taking on, the majority of those are on Emacs and Apple IIe's. We would gain efficiencies if we only went to a replacement cycle that was 5 years or less. Absolutely. So in this chart, this again shows if we were to go to a 3-to-1, which I probably quoted 25, 30 articles that spoke to an appropriate computer-to-student ratio. A 3-to-1 is just seen as good. A 1-to-1 is what most school districts are saying is excellent, and I think we're going after excellence. But right now, if we were just to go after a 3-to-1, which we are recommending, and we think we can figure out how to get there in the coming year or years, these would be the additional machines we would need to get to a 3-to-1 ratio with just computers that are 5 years old or less. I hope I captured that, because that was a 2-hour conversation that I tried to capture in about 2 minutes. And that's a hard thing to explain to a teacher who's coming to me with an Apple IIe, or a student who's asking me about why he still or she still has an Emac, and attempting to create an iMovie. And an iMovie to many teachers who are engaging students in the work is essential. And we can't run that program on the majority of our machines in our computer labs. When we say 6 of our labs are EMAX. So some things we know we have to fix and fix quickly, but we have some questions here. And again, we won't solve these. I was emailing back and forth with the teacher last night about 11 o'clock, and she was asking, so what are we going to solve at this meeting tomorrow night in an hour? I said, nothing. What we are going to do is confront the brutal fact. And we've talked about going from good to excellent. The first thing to do is confront the brutal facts. And I think we have some questions here that would allow us to talk about what's happening currently and what's possible. And we have some experts that can speak to some things that are happening in their classrooms that are great and some things that they wish they had some support from me and the board to move forward. Did I frame that well enough, Mike? Did you have the
I think all I wanted to add is that these critical questions have also been shared with some of our professional learning communities. We have shared it with the professional learning community at the district level, the Committee on Learning and Technology. That group has taken it back to other schools in this conversation. These critical questions are percolating through our community now. So this is a collaborative investigation that we're on together, but this body can clarify a lot about the sequencing of where we go, where we're going to go. We know that there are these different areas that have to change. We know we have a certain change capacity, so we have to get the sequencing down. So hearing about what's important to teachers, hearing about what's important to the board, helps us become clearer about what things should be done first, second, or third. And so this conversation begins here, it goes on, and as we get clear about game plans, we'll implement changes. We think, divided these questions into 3 areas that are germane and are perhaps easier to look at than the National Education Technology Society's list of 17 essential conditions, which is a little numbing and overwhelming. So we've tried to synthesize that great work into these key questions, and we hope that they bring forward in you what you need to say to us about this kind of work. So the first question here, what is needed to support New York, federal, and Ithaca curricular standards? Any of my colleagues like to try any along the way? Dr. Brown's reminding me that this is group participation.
I can go first if you like. So for the math department, again, my name is Todd Noy. It's nice to be here for you guys. I appreciate it. Math department leader at the high school. For us, technology is a pretty huge situation, not only to mention beside everything with computers, we have a whole other situation too where we have graphing calculators, which are like a technology piece that people don't really even think about because it's not really in the foresight or anything, but they're required for every student to be used to the Regents exam, and if they don't have them, we're supposed to lend them to them. So not only are computers an issue, but we're also losing those on a daily basis. Technology-wise, smart boards, we have 4 of them in our school. This is the first year, or 4 of them, excuse me, in our math department. This is the first year where we've actually have had a teacher who I think is feeling comfortable enough and seeing other people work with them come ahead and say, Mr. Noyes, I would like to have my class with a smart board. Someone who I never would have thought would ever have said that at all, like someone who is totally against technology. In the department, older person, kind of like, not really his thing. He signed up for a smart board workshop that we're running as tech mentors this week, so it's great to see that. For us to go through and to work with these smart boards in all our classes, a strong tool for us is basically, apps are hard, but something that's like designed already, like software, GeoGebra, free piece of software that can be used and a very nice thing, it's downloadable. We've gone to a bunch of workshops at Ithaca College during conference days in the past, the math department has, and we've actually been able to learn to see how you work this piece of software, as I'm saying. And so, for that type of topic there, we're seeing, applications that are available for us to be used within the classroom that, could help a lot to, enhance the curriculum that we're working with.
Hey, Todd, could you, this has always been a disconnect with my understanding in technology. Mm-hmm. And with math department, geometry was developed for computers.
Sure.
By Euclid and his friends. And so I guess what always stops me from supporting this and being as excited as I could be is, why can't we just have good teaching and learning without these tools? What, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that, I mean, and that's a stupid question, but it's really a
worthwhile question, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like when you say we have this, what does that do to you in the classroom that without it you couldn't teach geometry or algebra or what, you know, and Dr. Brown talks about any century skills. I mean, you know, Thomas Jefferson was learning and developing great ideas then. So could you just bring me aboard on that? Because
I'll try as best as possible. So I think in the past we've gone through it, right, and we've have all, even when I was in high school, we didn't really have a smartboard there. We had an overhead projector, and we had some graphing calculators, and we had some pencils and different kinds of activities. I think as we're moving on, I don't think we're losing that good teaching, but I think what we're doing is we're making teaching better. And we're able to go and say, hey, we have this smartboard here. We have this new graphing calculator. We have this EML that can see what I'm doing instead of drawing this horrible circle on the board because I can't draw a circle even though I'm a math teacher, you know? You're seeing this work, you're seeing this technology that's there, and I think it's actually just enhancing the teaching. And to go along with the idea of you know, why do we need this? I think it allows kids to kind of do their own investigative skills. Like we could draw something up on GeoGebra, put it on the smartboard, put 3 different points up there, form a triangle, and I could say, okay, here's the equation to the triangle. What happens as you know, so what happens as you, you know, move this length here? And what happens with the area if it's a right triangle? You know, what would happen with this area? Does it increase it? Does it decrease it? And I think it allows these students who, they just learn better that way. I mean, you can't really get around it any more than just saying, I think it helps students learn.
Well, let me ask you, can I erase my chalkboard or have 2 different diagrams instead of, I mean,
of course.
So if it's better, you know, and I could appreciate it. It'd be slick if I could take some shape and change it right on the board, you know, and have it move. But well, what if I drew out 2 different ones and said, okay, we're going to move from this one to that one?
But it's not a question.
You know,
It's not a question of us being the one who does the moving, standing at the chalkboard and doing the moving. It's a question of efficiency in the students being able to explore the material. So if the student has to go through the physical construction of something by hand and then go through a progression of 10 changes to that configuration, the amount of time that is taken devoted just for some students to drawing an accurate isosceles triangle, let's say, the efficiency in being able to ask the computer to draw that for you and to go through the changes, it's not that necessarily that it's efficiency for the teacher, more so efficiency and exploration for students.
Can we shift to the language arts perspective?
Well, Seth, it's not so much about the teacher, because we are going to be assessed. The Regents exams are going away. I hope you all realize that. And by 2013-14, we are going to be assessed by the PARC consortium. The PARC stands for Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. And when I look at it, I look at kids being ready for college and careers. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. When I go into a car parts store, there's a young kid, and he's working the computer, looking up the car parts, et cetera, et cetera. He's doing all this. The older guys who don't know the computer stuff, they're doing other stuff. There isn't a career anymore that you can't, you have to use computers. And when these PARC assessments come in that year, they are going to be taken on a computer. And you know, can you imagine if you're a kid, when you come into my classroom, let's say you're what we call now a Regents kid. That word Regents is going away. It's just an English 11 kid. You come into my room in September, I say to you, you can't use a pencil in this room. Why not, Miss Kenny? I always use a pencil. I want to erase. I said, but you can't use a pencil because in 18 weeks, you have to write the Regents exam in ink. And just psychologically, they have problems doing that. So I make them use a pen. And sometimes I even take the pen. no, not sometimes. Everybody gets a sheet of paper that looks exactly like the Regents exam to write the answer on. Because half of that battle is winning the psychological war, okay? So you take all these kids and you say, okay, now you're going to take your assessments on a computer. Don't even worry about the pen anymore. You're taking them on a computer. And I'm thinking, Cindy, just the psychological thing. These kids got to take this on. They got to be able to do this on this computer. I spent last week working with my 2 classes, doing their portfolios. I had kids that said, okay, we're going to put all our documents and all our pieces in one document. We're going to make a table of contents, and we're going to put page numbers on it. We're going to put the table. Page numbers. I don't know how to put page numbers on this. 11th grade. Didn't know how to put page numbers on it. I had to teach everybody how to put page numbers on. I had honors kids. I had this girl once screen went blank. And she was terrified. Her whole document was gone. What do I do, Miss Kennedy? What do I do? I said, don't touch it. Redo. Just do redo. It'll come back, you know, undo. It'll come back. You know, we don't have in this school district a curriculum that says when they're supposed to learn. I don't know what skills they know when they come in that room. I have no idea who knows what. And really, I say to myself, am I supposed to be teaching them, you know, undo and page numbers? Yeah, we can embed it in the curriculum, but how much and when and where? My background is, I was born in this town, and I grew up in Lansing. But in the 90s, I went and I taught in Taiwan. My kids grew up overseas in a little school that graduated 40, 50 kids a year. But we were emailing in the 1990s, you know, we were emailing, we knew how to do this stuff because we wanted to talk to grandma. We come home and people in the 90s, what's emailing, you know? My boy paid $9,000 in the late 90s and early 2000s to go to UPenn because he knew so much more. I was shocked when I came here and saw there's no curriculum. There's no curriculum. He paid $9,000 to go to UPenn because he got scholarships in computer. He was in computer science and math, double major. Where I hate to say it, but we're really, really behind in just computer skills. But I don't want to teach skills. I want to teach literacies and other things. I don't want to have to teach word processing in English. We've got to get together.
One more, because we're going to shift to the next thing.
I want to kind of tie it together. Such questions are important. Good teaching is good teaching. I think we talk in groups, we talk mostly about stuff, with all due homage to the knowledge of these gentlemen who have spoken, and the ladies, about the actual hardware and the software. When you talk to someone like me who's a user, not an innovator in terms of technology, we talk mostly stuff. But the question is, it's an essential question, what is needed to support the New York Federal and ICSD curricular standards? Well, first we need to know what the standards are. We need those curricular standards within the district, and it needs to be seen. We need SMART goals. They need to be measurable, they need to be observable, and they need to be reasonable. We don't need the spray and pray, I think, is where you spray out all the stuff and you pray that people will catch it. We need a plan that says we're going to have equipment that works. That's the first part. We need to have, and I'm really happy about whatever bandwidth is and the expansion and so on. I need to know that no matter what classroom I go into, and I may teach in 4 or 5 classrooms a day, that every place I go when I open my computer, I'm going to get a response that's reliable and the kids can too. And I need to know what it is in a programmed manner, what it is the kids know or will have known by the time they leave my classroom, and the method by which we do it. I've taught pen and pencil, I've done the overhead and the cubes and the chart paper. The point is, when I differentiate instruction with software that allows me to do it, I can go from the least able child in that room to the most excelled child in that room with the same basic goal, but do it in different ways because I can alter the program and alter what I'm doing, and I can monitor all of them. But not everything I do is going to be about a computer. So when we have a shared vision, which I don't think we have yet, we have ideas for a vision, but I don't think it's shared yet. And we actually have an action plan and a time frame so we can step into this realistically. You don't jump on a treadmill that's already going fast. You start slowly and you keep going. What do we need? We need the equipment, but we need training, and we need the curriculum with how the software is integrated into the curriculum, so that drives the program and technology uses, not the other way around. School to work, nobody goes to work these days and gets a job if you can't do fundamental word processing. Kids can't type. Kids don't know what to do. They need to be independent. So that's what I think is needed.
I was going to shift it to the next domain and wrap it, but did you have a question?
I have a slight tweak to maybe what Seth is trying to get to. Some of the best, the smartest people I've heard speak about education in the future talk about stop asking an age-old question about how smart is a child.
That's right.
Putting a new twist on that question and working to determine how that particular child is smart. Can anyone yet speak to how this technology will get to that? How will these new models help you as a teacher do a better job of forming a relationship with that child and determining where that spark is? That's a different question than, because frankly, you could all do it. You could take a new technology and produce exactly the same outcomes we're doing now with exactly the same students. And I'm trying to shift that question.
One of my colleagues, Dan McGrath, has a smart board, and I kind of wonder, like, I don't think I want a smart board because I'm moving toward differentiated instruction, and we're not doing a lot of things at the front of the room. The students are engaged in their groups and with each other, and I give directions, set the stage, but then it's mostly them working. So I've kind of questioned, what's the point of a smart board? I certainly haven't applied for one yet. But what he was, I did an observation in his room, and he was using the smart board, and he's just starting to learn how to incorporate it for instantaneous feedback from his students, so that when he asks a question, he has clickers, which I believe belong to the district, but he really wishes that, like, the department had its own set of smart clickers, that every student is able to immediately weigh in, whereas I'm sitting in my class and I'm giving every student an index card that they hold up as true or false, and he has the ability to instantly assess any question that he wants to, get immediate feedback from the students, know where each of them stands, where each of them is smart, and be able to then differentiate for those students based on the feedback that he gets. So that's one way, but I'm sure there are others.
In language arts, just recently, we did text on image, putting a text on image. I want every student that goes through my classroom to be able to make a card for somebody without having to pay $4 at whatever store. And every year I get kids who say, "Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy, because now I can make cards and I can make things like that." And they choose their own images, they choose their own words, and they show their own personality. And I've had a lot of reflections on a very small, simple thing like that. You've given me the power to do that.
I think we're providing these kids with tools to go beyond where they think. One of the hardest things for younger children to do is formulate a question. Kids are naturally curious and inquisitive all the time. Put them with stuff and they look. But to actually formulate a question and know what it is you have to ask to go further. And when you have computers, you can ask it without the embarrassment of 20 other kids looking and laughing, because you can do it with the computer and with the teacher. There's a way to monitor what they do and collect. Do I think that the computer itself and the software should be full day, all day, and everything? Absolutely not. I think you need a lot of personal interaction. It's an incredible tool with shy children, with students who have real challenges in communication and language, because you can spark an interest without having to have a specific demand. Maybe they're grapheme challenged and they can't write and can't formulate or have poor motor skills. There's a way for them to go and find things they would have never known before. I pined when libraries lost their card catalog, because the greatest joy I had was as I was looking for something, I found 10 other things on my way there. Now you put in 2 words and you get only the book or the issue you want, and I missed that. But what I find the kids doing is going all over. They're surfing all the time, because the spark they have takes them in places they didn't know existed. There are problems with
Google.
it. You know, you gotta also monitor, because kids get into things that are a little different.
Well,
But
let's
it's a
shift
good
it now, because I mean, we're talking
Go
about
shift.
the tools, and we have some infrastructure geeks here. If I can say that. But and so if we can talk about, so we talk about computers and tools, and what can happen if we have our classroom set up. What would that mean for the back end, as far as the infrastructure and the wireless capacity? Because depending on where you are, even in this building, you may have access or you may not. And how would that cause issues, or what do we need to do? Mike and Mike.
Let me just speak. We don't really have a wireless network in the same sense that we have a wired network. Our wired network was a capital project that was built to industrial spec, and that was great. Our wireless network is something that we built by saving a little money here and saving a little money there, putting up an access point there, putting up another one there, you know, pinching corners. And over the years, we've managed to expand to a reasonable footprint with mediocre performance and stability. But really, what's available now as a modern wireless technology is so much better than what we have that it blows away what we have. And of course, if anyone's been in a modern wireless environment, they notice it right away. In a modern wireless ability, everyone in this room could be on the network at the same time without seeing a performance delay. That's not true anywhere in our network. You know, in a real wireless network, a guest could get on the wireless network and get to the internet, but not get to our trusted resources. Whereas a teacher or administrator could get on the same wireless network, be recognized by the network as a trusted member, and get to trusted resources. We don't have that kind of facility.
But you know, we've talked about it. I mean, we can't even get cell phone coverage in Enfield. So, what
Thank you for
does this address this issue?
There are different kinds of wireless, and I'm glad you asked the question, because the kind of wireless that works with your cell phone and the kind of wireless that we're using inside our buildings are at different frequencies and have different equipment. The kind of wireless you have on your cell phone, which emanates from a cell tower, can travel very far. But the kind of wireless that is inside a building only travels about 150 feet. But the bandwidth, the performance of that network is far superior than what the cell network can offer. So when you're in a wireless network inside a building, you're getting a level of performance that's similar to plugging into a wired connection in a building, which is a very different kind of wireless connection than when people talk about 3G or 4G having to do with cell phones.
Dr. Simons, could you speak to me as a principal of Enfield, if we were to build out an infrastructure that would solve us with wireless capacity throughout the building and in the surrounding area, what would that mean for your building and for the community? They could pull up and have that access.
So stepping back to the slide of the ratio of computers to students, what's hidden within that is the reliability of those computers in their use. Mike and I worked really hard to get a lot of computers into Enfield. Prior to my coming there was not nearly the number of computers, and we thought we had a solution, which fortunately and unfortunately frustrated a lot of teachers because of the downtime that the network had produced. The frustration for me was an indication that teachers were really trying to use the equipment and trying to engage students on multiple levels, using reading software, using other forms of technology that
math software.
Yeah, absolutely. That kids would not necessarily see anywhere else. We did some not scientific or even straw polls of kids in computers at home, but the students that go to Enfield, for the most part, and the families at Enfield do not have computer access. So they're further disadvantaged by just that simple fact. what it would look like having computers and accessibility, wireless accessibility, it would free up a lot of time, especially using good teaching structure. So your question about what's going to change, it'll change the way that teachers look at how to use computers, because even in a 3-to-1 environment, you have to figure out when you're going to use the computers and how you're going to use the computers. As a teacher in this district, I was harkening back to the 90s, the golden age of computing in this district, really, because I had 5 computers in my kindergarten classroom, and every single kindergartner used a computer every single day because I had a system. They touched it 10 minutes a day for this program that didn't criticize them, that gave them their full attention for that 10 minutes, and they had focused instruction for multiple minutes a day, and it gave me great data to look at. That's not the only thing that they use computers for. I was one of the first classrooms in the district to do a video conference. I don't see that happening because it's a frustrating experience trying to get on for many teachers. So,
am I hearing you correctly? You were doing video conferencing 10 years ago. But,
more than 10 years.
15 years. 15 years. I'm sorry, Mike. You have more here than me. But now we are doing video conferencing because of our infrastructure.
We have a year-old mobile lab. We have to take kids out of, it only works in certain rooms because of the infrastructure. So I see teachers are switching rooms. Mr. Byrne is in Ms. Lord's room for a whole week because she has to go to his room for the mobile lab to work. So that's, and sometimes the individual laptops will work in one spot in a room, but not in another spot in the room. So that it's inconsistent.
And one quick story before we transition to this last piece. I was in the high school last week, and a teacher was using a brand new cart of MacBook Pros, the best device out there right now. And her students, and we talk about creating and problem solving, they were creating iMovies to solve a problem that had been posed by the language arts teacher. But he couldn't upload it, and he couldn't share them because they were in a room that didn't have access. So we had a $2,000 device that the students were wanting to communicate not only with the kids in the classroom, but across the world with. And they were saying we have to wait till the next day to come back, and hopefully those things would, and they had thumb drives, and someone was trying to download it and take it home to communicate at night. Some were saying, I hope it's there tomorrow when I come back, but they were saying we can't do this today during this class period because we don't have access in this room, and we'll hope to create some more when we come back. But it was just an interesting story. But before we, one more thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that I'm not sure that how many people are aware of. Have you heard of flipping the classroom?
Well, I assume moving to another classroom that has.
No, flipping the classroom is reversing what has traditionally been classwork versus homework. That with technology, being able to say, okay, instead of watching how learning this skill while you're in the classroom and practicing at home, computer allows for the watching of the demonstration in the home and then the practice in the classroom or with their peers and with the teacher being there to support. And so getting broadband out beyond the classroom and into homes. And I just, recently learned the phrase, but the idea that, people brought up oh, well, what about the students who don't have access at home? And there's always somebody who's not going to have, and do you stop from everybody, and how do we help make that happen? So I just wanted that idea out there as another way that technology can improve instruction.
And one last question before we open to the board to ask any question. PLCs, you've heard us talk a lot about professional learning communities. To implement PLCs in the way I think we're dreaming, there's some tools that we need to have. And I have Mr. Moon here to talk about what are some emerging technologies that will enhance PLC work as we know it to the place I think the folks are expecting us to be in the coming years.
Yeah, I'll say that when I first started teaching, curriculum guides and pacing guides were these dusty 3-ring binders that the outgoing teacher if you were lucky, handed you or left you in the filing cabinet so that you had some idea of what it is the school district expected you to keep. In the same manner that we have sort of modernized our thought process around a student information system that has all of the data relative to our students. We have WinCap that has all of our data relative to budget and payroll and those sorts of things. They have programs and databases out there that are completely devoted to the curriculum and instructional resources side of the house, and I think that's probably a good term, the instructional resources. What curriculum is being taught when, and what classrooms, what are the common assessments, the test banks, the data that comes back from those assessments, what has been the most effective method of reaching a particular student, which students didn't learn that skill. How can we regroup them to create time to reteach them that skill so that we're not passing along or at least addressing the gap before those students move on to the next topic or the next grade. And they're here. They're available. It's some of the things that I know in our state organization for DayTag that we've been looking at these different instructional management systems to say, you know, it's kind of, I used to say the silo technique. We have one database for keeping track of IEPs and all our students with disabilities, and one for RTI, and one for student management. And every one of these companies sort of built that one silo. Our transportation had one, and they're starting to kind of merge together and become one giant school management system, if you will, where all of that data is available in one location. All of those resources are available when we need them. They're SIF compliant, they talk to one another, so that demographic data that exists in your management system talks to your instructional management system and can say, are at-risk students, are they underperforming or overperforming with a particular teacher or on a particular topic or on a particular test? And I can't imagine, and I'll come half off topic. I originally started as a technology industrial arts teacher, if you will, which got its start in the manual arts, way back when the Industrial Revolution started. And schools were meant to prepare people for the world of work. So we created a shop class and we taught the boys how to run a drill press, and when they went off to manufacturing, they had the necessary skill to at least entertain that job. The girls went to home and career so they could be Susie Homemaker at home. But things have developed and advanced, and there isn't a job available anymore that doesn't require a computer. And that includes teaching, but it also includes learning that the students do. That's an essential skill that we would do a disservice to our students and our teachers if we didn't provide them with that skill and that technology. It is the one fundamental difference that's different today than it was when I went to school and when you went to school, that it is essential that those kids have access to those skills. We don't just draw with a T-square and a triangle anymore. The way I learned when I was in middle school, those kids are using a computer, they're drawing on AutoCAD. That machine talks to the CNC lathe that lays it out so the kid doesn't have to stand at that machine. That job's fundamentally different than it was even one generation ago. Teaching is fundamentally different today than it was a generation ago because of these new technologies that are coming out.
We're going to be asking our teachers to look at data weekly and quarterly and make real-time decisions in dynamic systems and talk with you and us about it. That won't happen if they're bringing clipboards to the table with printed out Excel spreadsheets. It just won't happen. We won't make the real-time shifts that we need to make for teaching and learning if we don't provide them the tools. When they come together during this professional learning community time to talk, it has to be automatic, it has to be with the push of a button, it has to be reliable data that they can then engage in the conversation. Because they're going to have about 45 minutes at the table. 45 minutes can be eaten up with sorting through papers and highlighting things versus clicking a button and knowing which students are struggling, which students have mastered the concept, and what shifts we need to make between classes, and how do we sort them, and then which assessment do we make for the students who achieved and who didn't learn. That can happen in seconds. And right now it probably take about 2 hours to do that. Easily. And it could sync out PLC work quicker than anything else. But questions from the board now, we've been talking probably too much. We talked a lot. This question's about, we're throwing a lot at you.
Now that there's
Not that there's anything wrong with staying home and raising your children, but go ahead, Judy.
But are we going to, as a district, settle on either a PC or a Mac? And is it necessary to do that if we want to run certain programs so that everybody can get that program?
I've been saying to folks, if we are having a conversation of PC versus Mac, we're having the wrong conversation. If we have to be multi-platform and we need to be looking at the cloud, if we're talking about purchasing software that's going to be installed on a local machine, we're already obsolete.
Okay.
Everything we need to do is available for free and downloadable in seconds if we have the tools. The graphing calculators, we've gone back and forth on this. There are apps out there right now, maybe not as reliable as we want, but in the next 6 months, we'll be able to download an app on an iPad that will be a graphing calculator that can be updated daily. So I mean, the thing, if we're having a conversation about a PC versus a Mac, I present that we're having a very obsolete, and we have someone from Cornell who probably can speak to that even better than I. Is that the conversation Cornell is having right now, PC versus Mac, or are you talking about?
Well, I agree with your position.
Yeah, very.
Can I just have one caveat? And you know, the other piece of our infrastructure, which is weaker than it needs to be, is our connection to the rest of the world, our internet connection. And we know that at the national level, the broadband initiative says anchor institutions like us should have 1,000 megabits of bandwidth connecting us to the internet. And we have about 15. And we're increasing that rapidly. But demand is still ahead of our capacity. So we're in catch-up mode. And the more we move things to the cloud, and the more we entertain this mobile model, the more important it's going to be to have a very robust, maybe even a diversified path to the internet.
Go ahead. Coach Sean.
A quick anecdote, if I may. Being a college educator, I get to see the flip side of what you all send, and I can tell you a student would not succeed in my class if they did not have any technology skills. To the question that Seth asked, what's been taking place is we also have the changing nature of knowledge. It is much more, it's a much more collective process of knowledge creation than it used to be. It's not my days of sitting in the stacks with a candle reading books, right? It's Wikipedia, right? Where folks are collaborating together on the creation of knowledge. And we see that with our young folks, and when I was in high school, media, I'm sure many other folks, I'm not that old, but media was unidirectional. And now our students are creating content. And so to provide them the opportunity to create that content is interesting. The way in which it happens in my class, just to get into it, is that the kids who talk in class are not the kids who write. The kids who write on the blackboard, the kids who write me emails, or the kids who don't speak in class, and I would never know they had a brilliant idea to say unless they sent me some other mode of communication. So be it blackboard, be it they create a video for me, be it they do some sort of PowerPoint display or Prezi presentation, whatever the case may be. But it's not the kids who are verbal. The kids who are verbal do well in school because they've perfected that skill set. I find a whole other set of students that excel that I would not have had the chance to pick their brain if I didn't use technology in some other way. But more importantly, and elder those who come to speak to my class, the way in which technology has impacted my teaching is that I, as a teacher, have everything at my fingertips. I have any video I want when I think of it at the moment, right? Between Netflix, between YouTube, whereas before I had to plan 4 or 5 days in advance. If something happens in the classroom, the student makes a great statement, man, I'd really like to show you that clip. Oh, but I don't have the video, right? I got to order the VHS, or hopefully it's on DVD at this point in time. Now I can go and YouTube, type it up, and there it is, and I can play it, and we can have that conversation in the moment, on the spot. And my students, I hopefully say that's changed their perspective about the way in which technology happens, and hopefully made me a better teacher. Hopefully that means better learning on their end as well. And so what I'm really hoping, I know this is the big conversation, the big idea, what you're going to find out, when all said and done, what are the numbers, right? So I know it's coming, I see some of that here, but I'm on board with the big idea. Now I need to know what's going to cost, but we'll get there.
Good job.
I had some more anecdotes, but I'm going to hold on to
for a later time.
So, Elbert, I'm glad you asked the question the way you did, not how smart are our kids, but how are our kids smart? And I know my friends who've been in teaching a long time know that as Howard Gardner and multiple intelligences and all that. Right? And one of the pieces that is a whole lot easier to do with these technologies is to be sophisticated visual people, right? You can put, let's be honest, before computers are here, when you're trying to address visual learners, talking about drawing a picture, Now you're talking about composing a visual world that's a whole lot richer. And frankly, images take a lot more storage than words. A lot. And moving them through the pipeline is a lot harder than. So that's how those learners are really enhanced. It's a big one. A couple of teaching and learning pieces for me. I was a good enough reader to make it all the way through up to graduate study and as strictly as a reader. And then because I was commuting up and back to Syracuse, and I was losing 3 hours a day, I started listening to my articles, right? Who knew? At 45, I discovered I'm actually a better auditory learner than I am a visual learner, right? I get it better when I hear it. I didn't know that until then. I was doing all right. Those are ways of making even print material accessible to more kids. When I was teaching at the college, some of our younger teachers who are here in the district now, I would say, I'd like you to interview somebody whom you know who has the experience of living with a disability or somebody in their family has a disability. Well, it took me a year to realize you can find 20 of those people on YouTube. And there's an ongoing conversation with them. It's not like they just posted it one time and it was done, right? So the kinds of access that Sean talks about, that's sort of instantaneous, and you said it really well when we were speaking to candidates forums. We don't necessarily want to prize the distant communication over local communication, right? It's just as important for kids in Fall Creek and BJM and Enfield to talk to each other, and kids in the same classroom, as it is across the world. But the fact is, even those kids are talking to each other all the time, right? And it's not always turn to talk to your neighbor. So I'm there with it. I'm hoping maybe because we've been talking so much about stuff, the Howard Gardner piece went, kind of just hang to the floor. I know folks know it, but that was the other piece that I want to put up there in terms of visual stuff. Is when in the PLCs, when we can be actually looking at a video clip of how teaching and learning is going on in the classroom, and you can actually replay how did that lesson actually go. Man, is that powerful stuff. And again, it takes a lot more power than we have right now. But instead of sitting down with the multiple choice test results, if we can actually be sitting down and looking at the learning that was going on in the moment with those kids, that's a way different, the Japanese lesson study model, which is built on that, where you take a team of your colleagues from classroom to classroom and observe each other do the lessons, one thing. But when I can flip this thing up, tape it, show it, and we can look at it together, it's a whole other scene. And our professional development should expand exponentially when we do that.
I'm going to ask you guys to do me a favor. I'm putting our leader aside for saying this to you guys. This presentation seems exactly like the boring class we said we want to get away from. And I'm sitting here thinking, it happened since you started talking. Why haven't you used this opportunity to show me? Show me how social media and RS and blogs and clouds and texts and wikis and Facebook and webs work to the advantage that you're speaking about. Right? So I'm going to make a suggestion. If you do this again, please use the smart board. Use the technology. Give us examples of how this looks like, what this looks like in class. Show me how you would create an environment in which we are distinguishing between learners. And I'm saying that simply because I don't spend time in the class. I need to rely on you guys to make this happen. So if you're gonna talk it, show us.
I want to tell you, I got an email that said, would you be willing to address any of these questions at a board meeting? I got a list of questions. I came today. I've never spoken to any of these people about any of this. I wasn't asked to make a presentation. I was here to provide an opinion and insight into something. If I were going to show you how this works, if I believed that this was successful, then I would present it to you differently. I didn't say that. All I was asked was what the essential question was and what I thought about it. If we don't have in-service training, if we don't do this in steps, if we just buy a lot of equipment and stick it in the hands of people and say, go for it, if we don't have the goals before we have the information, if I don't know why I have this stuff and what I'm going to do with it, the whole thing's going to fall apart anyway.
And my comment wasn't a criticism.
No,
Asking
I'm
you
just
something.
telling you. But you're asking the panel or the people who are responding rather than whoever it is put this together to present it. I'm not here to sell it. I'm here to have a conversation, to be critical friends, to look at what's good about technology, what we can do, what we hope to be. We haven't spent the money yet. We haven't done it. We need to have a plan and then go with the plan. We have the beginning of a vision. I'm not sure where the vision starts. But I'm going to say, what role do the teachers play in the decisions of what instruments and what stuff you're getting? We have experts, and they're good experts, and they spend a lot of time. But these are not the people who are in the classroom. These are the people that are in the classroom and tell you what they need and want, and what they don't know. I have to know how to do it. So
I'm
there's
not
a
here
lot.
to,
Yeah, I'm just trying to
it's
say
not
how
a
we.
criticism, but the panel's not there to sell it, but I'm here to buy it. And
I didn't know that's what you were going to do.
and I really, you know, one of the few times, I mean, I got what Tim was saying about assessment and using that data in meetings and PLC time. You know, and one of the few times I saw somewhat of a benefit was when Dr. Brown used the back channel during his presentation. I thought that was an effective use of it. It would help me. What else it said when he said it? Like, wow, if I had a presentation, you know, and was engaged in that way, you know, it would really help me better understand this. And I've struggled a few years, and I actually use technology. I use email. Wow, big deal, right? But so it would help me understand what we're trying to do and what we're trying to move forward.
I can jump in, and this is what I wanted to happen tonight, because the answer is the process. Had we come with the tools tonight, people would have perceived it as toys. We've had a great conversation about what's needed to enhance teaching and learning. And your question is the question that comes after we talk about creating, problem solving, understanding, community building. We had that conversation tonight. And now the question is, so what is that going to look like, and which tools are we going to have? Is it going to be a PC or a Mac? That's the next conversation. And that's another hour and a half, 2 hour show. But tonight, if we didn't get to, well, we need to do something, because 15 years ago I was video conferencing and now I can't. Now I'm expected to talk to kids not only in my classroom but across the world, but I don't have the access. What kind of device would I be using for that? Now, had we just come in and showed you a bunch of that stuff, it may not have been, it wouldn't have worked.
Let me ask you another question. How do we protect against novelty, right? How do we protect when we're making these decisions against, oh, you got an 11-inch screen? Oh, 13 looks better. How do we winnow that down to say what's essential for good teaching and learning? You know, we just got a bigger smartboard in there, right? It looks cool, but what was needed for us, you know, how do we put in place protections? Maybe I'm the protection against novelty, but how do we, in this process, any thoughts on that, or board members or anything?
Again, why we had the conversation versus the toys. We have to be clear about what we're going after. And that's why I was hoping our students would be here tonight. I can't believe they're all not here tonight. And we're talking about any century skills. When we have some convergence and we land on problem solving, it's going to be important for us. Communicating effectively with a diverse group of students and young people in your class or around the world is important to us. They'll tell us which tools. The teachers will tell us which tools to put in the hands. And this summer, we're going to be offering a suite of tools for teachers to choose from. Depending on what they're trying to accomplish in their individual classroom, they may choose something different. Some may choose a netbook, some may choose an iPad, some may want a laptop. It's going to be dependent upon how they're going after solving what are coming down as the Common Core standards. And we're going to have that conversation coming in a few weeks. the Common Core standards are huge for us. If I'm a teacher right now, I'm scared walking into a classroom without these tools, trying to implement that. Trying to do some of the things that are in the National Ed Tech Plan, which our President and our Secretary of Education are saying that we must implement in the next 5 years. To implement the National Ed Tech Plan right now in our district is going to be impossible. So the novelty around the tools and the 11-inch screen, the iPod, the iPad, we don't even need to have that conversation. We need to land on a common standard and the approach and say we're going to get there, and these things are going to change hopefully every 5 years.
Yeah, for now.
For now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I still want to go back to the access question, because you talked about the ability for kids to take it home. If they don't have broadband at home, or don't have a computer at home, what are they taking home? Are we suggesting there may be a school device where they've downloaded things off our system during the day so that they can take it home with them? I mean, what's our, because I assume we're not going to put broadband in for the county. We might help.
There's some.
Mention it.
Well, frankly,
I know you would.
Brad, that's a good point, because we have county people here hoping that someone will be able to put it in.
I hear what you're saying, but I also heard about, you talked about flipping and things like that, but that requires the child to have a device and have that device at home.
Or have access to time during the day to access that.
And you're still putting that child that doesn't have access at a disadvantage.
If we establish the need and our wishes, some of the folks in the room want to make sure it happens. And I've had conversations with vendors who will put a cell tower, and I don't want to say on top of a school because that's caused some controversy, but put cell towers in communities when the school district has decided they want to go after broadband access. And we can do this if we establish a need. That's why this conversation is important first, before we just start going out there and getting folks to donate money or cell towers and not knowing how we want to use it.
And I just want to make sure if we're going to be thinking about this as something that the children are going to be using at home or on the weekend or whatever, that we can't leave that whatever 10-15% of our people behind from the get-go.
Right, Brad, and I think, that common experience of all kids in all elementary schools being very similar, and we've talked about this, and I've talked about this, my kid can go to Enfield and have just the same experience as if he went to Northeast, and he'll have just as good a result, and we know that's true, and we know that happens now, but how does this all fit together? And we've heard that this is a bit of the sell. This in my industry. There's a sell and an ask. So I'm waiting for the ask, like Sean is. What eventually are we being asked to do? And that we're going to get to that. We're do this in facilities, Brad. We had kids from LECS come and talk to had a whole group talking about a fence at LECS, and then it was just and Brad asked, well, what do you want from us? And it was it's a fence, and it's to keep deer out. So, okay, the fence will keep deer out. Eventually you want a fence that keeps deer out. But you've told us not how much it's going to cost and what do you want from the district? Is it a school-based or is this a district-based job? What do you need to accomplish the goal that you've all come to us today and talk to us? And so this is the first part of that, and that's your point, Dr. Brown. And we're not supposed to be, we can easily be wowed by the videos, and we all enjoy that. But again, and Mike, I asked years ago, I said, Mike, how many computers do you need?
For years and years.
But there really wasn't an answer to that, was there, Mike?
No.
No, there was not.
Not till recently.
Right. So, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get an answer now, because if somebody could tell me years ago how many computers that we need, we may be in a little different position now. But you really didn't know, and it was an answer that you could not provide us. And so we're going to get to that point where we're going to know how many computers we need. We're going to know what kind of infrastructure we're going to need to put in place to make use of those computers and make a common experience in the district. Is that where we're trying to go?
Yes. We have one more comment before.
There is a very significant issue with regard to the extension of broadband in this county, and there is no greater advocate than the educators in the school districts in this county to make that case. It's why I came tonight, because you will find no one else who can make that case for the county. You also are going to find a set of politics and political issues that are going to confuse people about these reasons why or why we shouldn't. You're going to find commodity providers who are going to suggest reasons why or why we should wait for them or not wait for them. And I'm not going to give you my personal opinion or move into any of those arguments for or against. I'm going to say that to answer your question, we must move ahead with this. And the reason is for the children, for education. So how does the school district move these issues forward for Tompkins County is what we should keep as the goal, the end point, is the answer to your question. And that is the goalpost, Rob, that we all should have at the end of the day for it.
Dr. Brown, could I just say one thing? I'm sorry, before I go back there. I just need to say that there's a critical connection to what we're discussing tonight and the teaching and learning framework that we will develop as a district, right? And part of what will drive that framework is what I have in my hand that has been referenced several times this evening, which is President Obama's National Education Technology Plan for the country. Right? And the title of this plan is Transforming American Education, Learning Powered by Technology. Right? So, as a district, we will create this teaching and learning framework document that will, again, define rigor for our students and what we expect them to know and be able to do in the 21st century. Right? In terms of curriculum, we will embed in the curriculum what skills we know kids will need in order to be able to compete in a global economy, in order to be able to compete in the world, not just in our nation. They don't just live in our nation anymore. They live in the world, right? My son came home and said, "Mommy, we're skipping tomorrow," right? He meant Skyping. We're Skyping with our friends in Paris tomorrow. And he and Liliana are convinced that these kids in France are their friends. They are working on problems with them. They are solving problems, 4- and 5-year-olds, with kids in France. I know we can do this in public education. My kid goes to a private school because there wasn't universal pre-K in our neighborhood, but I know that we can provide this quality education for our kids in public school because we have to. They will not be able to manage, right? They won't be able to manage in the world that they will inherit. They are citizens of the globe now. I just have to just keep reinforcing that. And we need to provide digital environments, learning environments that can be personalized for them, that improve student engagement, that advance their ability to think critically about real-world problems, things that are important to them.
Thanks, Connie. Are we done? Chris, Pat, anything? Feel free to weigh in.
I could go on and on.
Okay, then don't, Pat.
Okay. It's another time.
Another.
I'll break you in slowly.
This is not the last time we will be addressing this issue, correct, Dr. Brown?
No. You've given me something. The next step. It could have died tonight. We could have said we don't want to hear any more about this technology piece.
You mean we don't want to put a fence up?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing and sensing is that you're hungry for more information and you're hungry for numbers, and that's what we were hoping to take from this conversation. We can put together plans. We have no comprehensive technology plan for the district. I'm sensing a need for one of those from our staff, from our students, and from you now. You're asking what next? How do we do it? And now I think we can begin that work.
We have copies of President
So we're gonna send
Just
you.
call the White House.
It's online.
It's
It's online.
Are you online, Judy?
Yeah, right.
So the pound that get the packet.
You don't have it out there.
We're done.
No, Rob and I don't have it.
Dr. Brown, thank you. That ends our work session on technology. Thank you all for your time, and we appreciate it. And I think we're going to talk again. Yes.
Thank you.
Reprise, anyone? Anyone?
I would just like to say that if any of you would like to come and see what we're using technology for in English, I would like to invite you. I'd like to invite you to come and see what they're doing in Common Life, what they're doing with Wiki, what they're doing in, I'd like you to come on Tuesday and watch me do Google Docs with the Hickory Club. You know, make a calendar sheet. Do this and do that. So, please tell me that you want to be invited.
Thank you, Shirley.
I'd like to come.
So, any other business at this point?
I'm sorry, I meant to go after her, I was just distracted by a Jojo question. As well as for algebra, by no means, I have 6 teachers in my department who are purely teaching by the smart board. If I know, Chris, you said that you're interested in coming. If any of you guys are interested in seeing, you can group the whole board if you want into a classroom. I know my teachers would be more than willing to share, and I think you guys would probably enjoy it and be a little bit more up to like what you thought you'd be seeing or what you'd like to be seeing. So
See how it's-
by no means, you're more than welcome to contact me at the math department, and I can set something up for you.
Right, and I think that's going to be an essential visit to do, not an if, but I think there'll have to be a when here. Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Todd. So good. Thank you for the reprisals. Any other business? Brad, go ahead.
I'd like to move we go to an executive session to discuss negotiations, discussion of employment history of particular persons, and litigation.
I need a second. Second by Judy. Without objection, we will move to exec and probably take 5 minutes as we move. Thanks, everyone.